Good afternoon. Good afternoon and welcome to the Executives Unplugged Luncheon presented by Wellstar Douglas Hospital. I'm excited to be with you all today. My name is Trent North and I chair the Board of Directors for the Douglas County Chamber, and I'd like to personally thank each of you for joining us today. At this time, I would like to invite Roger Vest with Douglas First United Methodist Church to come forward and lead us in our invocation and pledge.
Welcome, and I'm not sure if you say Happy Ash Wednesday, but it's Ash Wednesday. And Valentine's Day is a wonderful mix of holidays there. So if you would, bow your heads, please. Father, we thank you for our community. We thank you for those who have committed their lives to serving our brothers and sisters. Father, just be with us. Guide us and direct us. May we take what we learn here today, Father, and apply it to the lives and to our community. Lord, we ask that you bless this food so it may nourish our bodies and ourselves to your service. In your holy name we pray. Amen. And if you would, stand as you're able and join with me. Hold on. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amen.
Thank you. At this time, I would like to invite our presenting sponsor, my good friend Heath King from Wellstar, to the stage for remarks.
Good morning and early afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Trent, for the introduction. For those of you who I may not know, my name is Heath King, and I'm the president at Wellstar Douglas Medical Center. On behalf of our dedicated team members and physicians, I want to extend our sincere gratitude to the Douglas County Chamber and Sarah and her team and Trent for the opportunity to sponsor the Executive Unplugged Luncheon Series this year in 2024, and for continuing to foster meaningful connections in our community. At Wellstar Douglas Medical Center, our mission is to enhance the health and well-being of every person we serve. We're driven by a passion for providing exceptional care to every individual who walks through our doors, regardless of their background or their circumstances. This commitment extends beyond the confines of our hospital to embrace the broader community we proudly serve. As the leader of a large not-for-profit organization myself, I do look forward to hearing from Keith Parker this afternoon and learning more about the Goodwill of North Georgia's unwavering dedication to the well-being of individuals and families in our community and across the state. This commitment resonates deep with our values at Wellstar, and we congratulate Keith for his endeavors with the Goodwill of North Georgia. As we move into the new year, I do want to remind everyone to give yourself the gift of good health in 2024. I ask that you stay active and remember to schedule your annual visits with your primary care providers. If you need one, feel free to reach out to me or anyone with Wellstar, and we'll help point you in the right way. And get your screenings that you may be due for this year, whether they be preventative for early detection or other healthcare visits. We're here for you if you need us. And in closing, just want to thank you for your valued partnerships in our community.
Next, I would like to take a moment to recognize some of our special guests attending today. Board members, please stand and introduce yourself. Thank you. Diplomat and business, I'm sorry, did I miss you? My favorite from the Water and Sewer Authority. Thank you, Lindsay. Diplomat and business outreach team, if you would stand, please. Thank you. If we have any elected officials joining us today, would you please stand and introduce yourself? Thank you. And thank you for the great job that you do, Mayor. We are also proud of our 2024 Cornerstone investors that joined us today. I'm sure many of you noted them on the slides prior to the luncheon, but I do want to say thank you and recognize the group sitting here in the front of the room. If you would please stand, Chairman Visionary Partners, and introduce yourself. Don't be shy. And Trent North Douglas County School System. I'm also thrilled to introduce one of our newest 2024 Cornerstone investors, Jim Sams with Stacks Incorporated. Please come to the stage at this time.
Hey, I wasn't aware this was a speaking engagement too, so this will be a little bit off the cuff, but I'm Jim Sams with Strack Incorporated. We are one of the largest heavy civil site work firms in Atlanta. We've been in business for over 75 years, and we're a third-generation family-owned company. We have done a lot of work in Douglas County over the decades, and we're really excited to be a part of the chamber here and find a way to give back to Douglas. So thank you very much, guys.
Thank you and welcome. At this time, I would like to introduce our keynote speaker for today's event. While we know the food is good and we know you enjoy the fellowship, we are excited about our speaker today. Our speaker today has a rich history of dedicated service on nonprofit, charitable, corporate brands, and is actively engaged with organizations such as the Rotary Club of Atlanta, the Georgia Chamber, just to name a few, showcasing his deep commitment to community impact. It is my pleasure to introduce Keith Parker, President and CEO of Goodwill of North Georgia, to the stage. Join me in welcoming him.
All right, good afternoon. And here comes my clicker. Thank you much. It is so good to be back in Douglas again and see some familiar faces. She left. I guess she had more important things to do than to hear the Keith Parker speech. But your wonderful mayor, who's a great leader in her own right. But yeah, I just thrilled to be here in this beautiful county again. I love this downtown. I love this whole area. I always feel like this is what community is a good feel for what community is like. And so thank you all for having the opportunity to come out and chat with you for a few minutes about what we're doing and what we like to think of as one of the most impactful nonprofits here in the state of Georgia and beginning to have an even bigger national reach. So I'm going to chat with you for a few minutes, and then hopefully we'll have some time left over for questions if there are any. So my own journey, I was asked to talk a little bit about how I got here. My journey started years ago in Richmond, Virginia, where while in graduate school, I was a minimum wage intern and got my first real assignment from the then CEO, who asked me to put together a map of the new bus routes that we were trying to implement and send this on to the federal government and so forth. At that time, I was making $4 an hour as an intern, but loved that assignment and fell in love with the whole mass transit piece. So within 2.5 years, went from intern to deputy CEO and in Richmond, and then by the time I was 30, got my first CEO job out in Vancouver, Washington, and I've had the great fortune of working all around the country in places like Los Angeles, Charlotte, Texas, as I mentioned, Virginia, and each time meetings with some fantastic leaders and different walks of life types of folks, but in every case, recognizing that some solid principles about leadership and community, if you have those things in place, you can be successful. So that brought me, after having a really great stint in all of these different and various places, 4 different CEO opportunities, I arrived in Atlanta in 2012, where it became really the task of my career, where these are some of the headlines when I became appointed as a CEO of MARTA, where it was basically the system is broken, and why can't MARTA do anything right? And so these were some of the things that were mentioned in the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. As you all who were here remember, there was a tax a referendum back in 2012 that was defeated by a 2-to-1 margin, and MARTA had raised fares more than any other transit system in the country, and it cut more service than any other transit system. And I remember doing a scan of the previous 6 months of all the media coverage that the agency had received, and almost everything about it had been negative. In fact, even my appointment was negative. I was basking in San Antonio as a CEO out there, and had just signed a new contract with them, and which was going to make me the highest paid transit CEO in the country over the next 5 years. But something called me to come here. And what it was a phone call I received at 5 o'clock one morning, on a Sunday morning, from the local newspaper person. And she said, well, Keith, there have been all these rumors about you possibly going to Atlanta. And I said, and her name's Erica. I said, Erica, you know you can't print that. You all have journalistic qualifications that require someone to go on the record before you can print anything. You can't go by these anonymous sources. She said, oh yeah, we have a guy who's going on the record. His name's Mike Jacobs. He is a state senator from Atlanta. And he said that you're one of the finalists for this position. And he said that that's a terrible choice if they hire you for this position. And in fact, he's the chair of this MARTA Oversight Committee at the state legislature. And he said that if they do in fact hire you, MARTA is going to have a terrible relationship with the board. So that was another welcome to Atlanta, you know. So, so that made me go from being on the fence of whether I'd take the job or not to saying, I'm all in. So we're going to be going to Atlanta, and we're going to do everything we can to turn things around. So here's what I faced. So December 10th, 2012, our first day on the job, the then CFO comes in and meets with me, and he says, well, Keith, here's what's going on. We've lost more ridership than any other time in the history of the organization over the past 10 years. Most of our employees have only had one raise in the last 10 years. We're losing between $25 and $33 million per year, and by the spring of 2017, the agency will be fiscally bankrupt. Welcome to Atlanta again. So we took that and decided we're going to really push and put together all the different principles that we've done throughout all the other times that I've had opportunities to lead organizations. And here's what I think are the key elements of a successful tenure as a leader. First, setting a compelling and inspirational vision. Secondly, recruiting, inspiring, and retaining an exceptional team. Third, routine operational excellence, to be so good at what you do that it becomes routine. And fourth, effective crisis management. I think if you can do those 4 things, you can run any organization and you can bring it to success. So within 6 months of getting there and facing what was initially a $33 million projected deficit for that first fiscal year, we turned that projected deficit into a $9 million surplus in less than 6 months. And by the time I left, rather than being fiscally bankrupt in the year 2017, left them with $250 million in the bank in reserves. And we gave our employees more raises during that 5-year period than they had received in the previous 30. Our customer service numbers were the highest since the Olympics, and our public image dramatically increased. And in fact, the state senator, Mike Jacobs, who had said Marta was going to have such a tough time by hiring me, he actually wrote an op-ed to the Atlanta Journal-Constitution where he said he was wrong and they hired the right guy. So we had a really good run during that period. So as a result, I started getting a lot of really nice attention as the guy who turned the transit system around, and they're giving me all these nice accolades, me and our team. So at the end of that 5-year period, I started to think, okay, so what do I want to do next? Because we had accomplished the vast majority of the things I wanted to with the Transit Authority. And so what would be a nice next step for an executive like myself? So as I looked around Atlanta, I saw that, to me, what is the most pernicious problem facing our community is the fact that if you are born in certain zip codes throughout metro Atlanta, including the English Avenue, Vine City area where Martin Luther King actually had home, there is a 96% chance that you'll be born in poverty, you'll live your entire life in poverty, and you'll die up to 21 years younger than people who live just 3 miles away. And that Atlanta has the distinction of being the most difficult city in the entire country if you're born in poverty to get out of poverty into middle class and into a level of affluence. So some of the other stats that I looked at was just, again, some of the economic inequality and that sort of thing that goes on. That if you happen to be an African-American born in the metro area, the gap between poor people gets even greater when you look at people of color. And again, amongst the worst in the country. So when I started thinking, well, where can I make the greatest impact on that? Because still, to me, the single biggest thing you can do to move an individual, a family, a neighborhood, and then a community out of poverty is to get at least one person, then more people, and then that whole community good, sustainable jobs. And Goodwill of North Georgia, that's what we do. So Goodwill's been around almost 100 years. Goodwill of North Georgia, almost 100 years. Our 100th anniversary is next summer. And during that time, we've had a very simple, straightforward mission, and it is to put people to work. So that became my passion, and the board of directors followed me with this, that our goal in modus operandi would be to move people out of poverty and into the middle class and helping to offset some of the economic inequalities that besets our region. So how does Goodwill do it? We have a model that's now been around for, as I mentioned, almost 100 years. And I always start by asking this, how many of you have either shopped at or donated to a Goodwill? So just about everybody. And that's always the case. Now, how many of you know what we do with the profits? All right, we got more work to do. Fewer numbers, but that number's been growing. So when you shop or donate to Goodwill, we take those profits and put it into economic development, workforce development. So shopping, donating at any of our 69 stores or donation centers, that's the elixir for what we do. And so we are now having an enormous impact on the state's economy and education, as well as on the environment. And I'll tell you a little bit about those. So some things you may not know about us. We're the largest nonprofit employer in the metro area. We have 3,700 employees and growing. So we're the largest Georgia-centric, Georgia-focused nonprofit actually in the entire state. There's some groups like the American Cancer Society who have a bigger reach, but for Georgia-centric places, we're the biggest of all the nonprofits. In our retail footprint, we've now passed Target in terms of the footprint for retail in the state of Georgia. We have, as I mentioned, 69 stores. There is a Goodwill within a 10-minute ride for more than 90% of the metro area. And who are the people who shop with us? Most folks have in there, many have this stigma that Goodwill is a place that people shop who can't afford anything else. That's not the case. Our spectrum is extraordinarily broad, from college students who want to make a statement about nobody else can wear what I'm buying because it's a one of a kind, to environmentalists because they know that if by buying a pair of jeans that they are keeping an item that will stay in the landfill for 75 years, to people who just want to find value in all sorts of things. But our typical customer today is a 45-year-old female, college educated, married, makes 30% more than the median income in our region, and tends to have a cat. We hadn't figured out the cat part, but that's the case. Okay, and another thing, many people tend to think that because we're a nonprofit, that we get lots of monies and donations from the government. Very, very not the case. We get less than 4% of our revenue comes from the government. Almost all of the money that we get comes from people like you when you shop or donate items to Goodwill. And so what has the impact been? As I mentioned, we use those profits for economic development, for workforce development, to get people trained for great jobs and careers. So we partner with more than 5,000 different groups, as small as literally single proprietorships and as big as the Home Depots and Coca-Colas and others, with 14 free career centers sprinkled throughout North Georgia, and we hope to bring one to this county very shortly. But those are totally free for anybody who wants to use them. And we help job seekers of all types, veterans, middle-income people who want to move to the next level, folks, students, people who have enormous barriers to employment, as well as people looking for their very first job or their first job in a long time. And we try to take a very strategic approach and put together workforce training and so forth in the high-demand areas, like in healthcare, like in technology, all sorts of other places. Again, things as basic as forklift operation and as complex as cybersecurity. We're providing training and placement in all those various areas. We help, and we're known for this, help many, many people with disabilities. Over the past several years, about 6,300 folks have come into our doors with disabilities that they tell us about. Many others have disabilities that they don't disclose. And just a little less than half, we've helped find permanent employment. People who have come out of the criminal justice system, this is an area we're finding greater and greater success. We have a hit rate of over 50% of the people who we help, who come through our doors, we've been able to place into great positions. And most of you know who are in this area that the number one factor in a person not going back into prison is having a job on day one when they come out. And that's what we do. Like, for example, we work with the prison up in Hartwell, a ladies' prison. So we typically go in about 3 months before they're scheduled to come out, start the workforce training, and so on day one, they are employed. And we're doing this in Gwinnett County Jail and a number of other places, and placing literally thousands of people to gainful employment. And now we're really jumping into some other really high-tech and state-of-the-art types of fields. Just a few weeks ago, we announced this partnership with Accenture, the state, City of Atlanta, and several others, where we're getting into the whole electric vehicle space. We've got 15,000 people who we're targeting to find employment at jobs for many of our folks. In fact, some of my own Goodwill people who are making 15, 16 bucks an hour have now joined this first cohort of classes. And when they finish, just 1 month later, jobs averaging around $63,000 to $70,000 a year in just about a month. So this EV space is one we're getting into in a very, very big way. But for people who don't want to work for anybody, we also have a program called Good Biz, where we have helped hundreds of entrepreneurs start their own businesses. And now they have become employers and helped employ thousands all around Metro Atlanta, people who, for, again, simple, very basic types of things to very complex businesses. And we're helping these entrepreneurs get started. And on the education front, we are now working with several dozen high schools with a program called the Youth Employment Services Program. To give you an example of how effective we've been, we provide wraparound services for these young people. For a high school that may have a typical graduation rate of 81%, when Goodwill gets involved and works with these students, the graduation rate goes up to right around 99%. And we're placing that they're either graduating and going to college, or we're finding full-time jobs for 100% of the folks who stay with our program. And on the technology side, this is another fast-growing area for us. TechBridge is a company who we've partnered with for years now, and we have helped people like this young lady, Lyric, who was one of our very first graduates. She was making $9.50 an hour. 16 weeks later, she was making $60,000 a year. And we have literally hundreds of examples just like that. This is a program I actually started with Atlanta Mayor Andre Dickens about 6 years ago, and it's been extremely successful. And then there are people who are mid-career or even further. And this is April Dean Hunter, and April had reached what she described as a sort of like a glass ceiling in her company. She went through our technology career program and almost instantaneously got promoted and is now making a much greater level of compensation. So in the past 5 years, there's about 154 Goodwills around the country, all of them in workforce development of some type. We are now the #1 in the entire country. We've helped about 125,000 people find jobs over the last 5 years, and a very significant percentage of those folks, we are moving into the middle class. So Douglas County, right here, with our closest career center being in Smyrna, we've had about 1,000 people come in looking for jobs. We've helped more than 330 in just the past year alone find new employment, permanent full-time employment, and just the past 6 months, another 150. So we're finding some success, but we know if we put a career center out here, we'll do even more. And the thing that we're most proud of over these last 5 years is not just finding people jobs, but finding people jobs that gets them out of poverty. When I started, of the about 17,000 people who we helped find employment that first year, only about 16% were we able to find living wage and beyond jobs. You see how that number has increased to now 86% of the people who we place, we're placing into living wage, family-sustaining types of positions that's really turning their lives around and moving them out of poverty, again, into the working and middle class. And we're having an enormous impact on the environment as well. So, as I mentioned, one pair of denim jeans, it takes 2,000 gallons of water to produce one pair of denim jeans. So if you shop at Goodwill and buy your denim from there, and by the way, that's our #1 selling item, our denim jeans, you are helping the environment. And so when you reuse the coffee table, reuse the suit, that sort of thing, all told, it allows 43 million pounds of items that otherwise would be going into the landfill. Instead, it's being reused, and that suit that no longer fits just right is the interview uniform for someone else, or that coffee table that no longer fits your carpet in your living room is the dream thing for this new couple in their very first apartment. So please continue to donate. It has a great, great impact. And this is just a graphic of all the different companies who we are working with. As I mentioned, more than 5,000 different corporate partners. And if we're not a partner of yours, let's talk. So let me finish by telling you about one of our great success stories, and this is Miss India Watson.
My name's India Watson. I'm from Baltimore, Maryland, and we thought we were going to be renting a home here, and the person pretty much took our money and turned us away. And it was like right before my birthday, which is in February. And so I ended up for my 50th birthday riding on the MARTA, and I spent the night at the North Spring Station stairwell of the parking lot. And so that went on for a couple of weeks before I told my son we got to split up again. So he went and stayed with some friends in another town. And I went into a shelter, the Restoration House in Land Mission. And when I got there, they pretty much wanted me to just heal and rest. And I wasn't hurt. I wasn't in need of healing. I needed a career. One day when I was at the train station and I was begging to one of the employees to let me ride because I didn't have any money to buy a car, a pass or anything. And so I convinced them and they, swiped their card, let me on. And then I heard God say, Goodwill. And so I remembered, oh yeah, that's right, Goodwill got a career center. And I'm trying to change careers overnight. Let me go out here and I can use their computer and, figure out what I'm gonna do. So I started with the Good Biz program, the entrepreneurship program with Miss Brittany Flanagan, and I met Miss Sharita Sanders, and she helped me with the funding. She's really cool. I had my interview for housing, and they told me, well, we're not going to be able to help you. You don't have any drug addiction, you don't have any children, and you're not dealing with domestic violence, you're not running from anyone, so we don't really have anything. We do have one thing you can do is a program called Shelters to Shutters, where you can work at a management company for apartment complex, and you will be able to work where you live. So then I didn't have a car, so that was perfect. And then they said that they would fully furnish my apartment for the first year, and then also help me pay some of my rent for the first year. And so that's how I met Miss Amy Klein, and she was the one who helped me get a job here. And so I looked into the maintenance technician program, and I talked to Miss Flanagan. She said she could help me. And so then I pulled up an ebook about it, and I saw all of these squiggly lines and math and stuff. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't think I can do this with all these screaming kids in here and these women fighting each other. And, you know, I just don't know if I can do it. And so I talked to Miss Flanagan. I said, I don't think I can do it. And, you know, for the first time in my life, somebody told me, yes, you can. You can do it. You know, all you have to do is stay. You did so well in our previous program. I know you can do it, India. And so, and then Miss Sanders was like, well, you know, you have the funding. We'll give you bus passes to get back and forth every week. So, you know, it should be good. And so I decided to do it. It was really difficult because, you know, it was a lot going on in the shelter. Like the women always tried to hold me back because they figured, you know, well, if she's going to school, then they're going to make me want to go to school. I don't want to go, you know, they just wanted to sit in their hurt. And I did my best to always motivate them and try not to, you know, make them feel like it would be something wrong with them trying to get a career instead of just a job. When I came here, I remember my grandmother telling me something. She said, you know, never stay in a place where you are not appreciated or celebrated. And when I came here, it was all those things. They celebrated me right away. It was around my birthday. I got a chance to be in my new place for my birthday a year later. So no more, you know, sleeping in the stairwell. And I just want to tell like all the graduates, we all are leaders. You know, because we started something and then finished it, the future is going to follow in our footsteps. You know, you may have a little cousin or a little neighbor who's like, yeah, oh, she wanted to learn how to drive trucks. I'm going to do that too. You know, so that was like everything to me. I mean, look at me now. My smile is a miracle. And it's genuine. And, you know, it could have turned out a whole lot worse had I not, you know, listened to God and went to Douglasville.
So India went from homeless, and about 14 weeks later to around a $70,000 a year job. And she, in her smile, reminds me that I have the best job in the world. Because she's special, but she's not unique. Literally tens of thousands of people we've helped. And so again, when you drop off that suit that may not be fitting as well as it once did, or the coffee table, India and people like her, that's what we're able to create at Goodwill. So with that, I think we still may have a moment or two to take a question. Yes, ma'am.
So, my name is Leslie Nelson, and when I heard that you were going to speak today, I just had to get here. So I actually have an LLC, and I understand you're in a nonprofit space. First of
Well, as I mentioned, we've got 5,000 partnerships. You'll be 5,001. So Don, sitting right at the table, we'll get your information and we'll be in touch. Yeah. Yeah. You touched on something in the presentations. If I put everything in there that we do, we'd be here till tomorrow morning. But that's one of the big focus areas, is working with the federal government on several different big employment contracts, including the CDC, where even during the pandemic and everything was shut down, our folks are the ones who are cleaning out those places, delivering mail, all sorts of things. And the people who we have doing that work, 90% of them have at least one disability, most have two or more. And our turnover rate, best in the industry. So where in most custodial, janitorial type services, the turnover rate is around 300% per year. Our people are being retained at 94% per year in a space that most folks just hire them, use them up for a little bit, throw them out, and move on. So thank you for doing that. We'll make sure we send a check to you. Yes, sir. Oh, you just carry the microphone.
Yep. In case anybody needed it.
Yes.
Isaac Esel with Serenity Empire Senior Living. And Keith, once more, thank you for what you're doing. Healthcare is the fastest growing sector in Georgia. When we had the last economic update, healthcare has put up over 35,000 jobs, and it's ahead of most of the companies coming up. But at the same time, we still need more employees. You could have seen that healthcare being the leading provider for employment in the state of Georgia would have enough employees. So we want to work with you to see how we can train, especially caregivers, med techs, activity directors, and things like that, so that we can help our senior population, which is the fastest growing aging group that is turning into senior care facilities right now. So if we can go ahead and do something together, Serenity Empire, we're ready, and we want to partner with you to do something for our seniors.
Great, looking forward to it. We have a number of different programs in healthcare and working with some of the major hospitals. I saw the WellStar gentleman. It's more than one WellStar person. By the way, I'm your boss. I just joined the WellStar board, so you guys keep going. But no, we got some partnerships with several healthcare groups, and we are developing more and more programs because healthcare is one of the most high demand areas. And we're also, with this entrepreneurial component, really trying to work with people about creating a culture that people want to work in. Because the solution is not simply bringing in more bodies. If we don't do things that fundamentally change the work experience of our folks, we'll never have enough people. So we'd love to work with you on that.
Well, guys, give him a hand. Thank you.
Thank you, Trent.
You know, when you said you have great employees, I know you do. There's a young lady that runs your career center in Carrollton, Georgia, by the name of Erin McGinnis. Mm-hmm. She's relentless. Okay. She does a phenomenal job of supporting people, and every time someone needs a job, and she won't call HR, she calls the superintendent directly. There's a resident in your community. We've just gotten them trained on clerical. Can you help me out? So y'all do a phenomenal job, so thank you. And I can even brag, because my staff, I have a heavily female-dominated workforce, and they love blue jeans. If I can, I can increase my attendance by just allowing them to wear blue jeans every day. But I'm an environmentalist. I only own 2 pairs. Oh, okay. So I'm trying to help save water. So I just want to say thank you once again for your partnership and presentation. Okay, gotcha.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Once again, thank you, Keith, for that wonderful insight and for the inspiration. And just so you know, we do have boxes in Douglas County. Every time we do purging, I take pride in taking my wife's orders and making sure I drop them off. And you know, so just a wonderful thing, so thank you. Just a few announcements. Please join us next week for a new breakfast series, Thriving Together, Celebrating Partnerships in Douglas on February 22nd at 7:30 a.m. at the Douglas Mercer University campus. This event will feature Alex Gonzalez with the Metro Atlanta Chamber for a discussion on where you belong, a year-long campaign using data to uncover the best ways to attract and retain skilled talent for our region. And then the last announcement, join us for our Common Ground Community Dinner on February 29th at 5:30 p.m. at Fox Hall Resort. This event will feature a guest speaker, manager of diversity and equity inclusion from Atlanta Gas South, and shares her insights on exploring strategies for incorporating equity principles into existing diversity and inclusion initiatives, emphasizing the importance of creating environments where everyone has equal access to opportunities and resources, and promoting discussions on fostering diverse and equitable communities through comprehensive DEI efforts. I hope you all can join us. Lastly, once again, thank you to our friends at Wellstar Hospital for sponsoring our event today. Because we knew that you were going to be blessed by the speaker, we do not have any gifts. Have a wonderful evening.